Hello, this is Professor Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at the Fashion Institute of Technology, another tutor for our Rhino instruction, fundamental modeling with CAD, working on the filigree bandery project. The one I've been showing you in class is the simpler variation on this handout page. I've decided to go ahead and work through the more complicated one. To refresh your memory, that is this one. I've carried it to the same degree you should have carried yours. I did my center line, I did my offsets. I've trimmed out my offsets so that I can see what my design will look like, and I'm ready to make my pipes and weave them, which is what your homework for this week is. First thing I am going to do is I am going to move my wires and then move them back. As we discussed in class, this will allow me to establish history and in a way that will allow me to move my design back and forth. Before I do that, though, I am going to make a change to this line. I'm going to move it from its end to the center of this circle, and actually I'll just draw a new line. That's faster. From center to center, just because I drew that quickly and it wasn't the exact right length. Okay. I'm going to take these three curves. Believe it or not, as complex as this design is, that's all the center lines that were involved in it. I'm going to go ahead and move these without history. I'm just moving them out of the way using grid snap. Okay. And then I'm going to move them back. I should say I'm not going to move them back. I'm going to copy them back inside of Rhino with history. It's important that this copy is done inside of Rhino. This is not Control-C, Control-V, where you copy it out to the Windows clipboard and then bring it back. This is where you actually copy the geometry within Rhino. It's the only way you can copy with history. The outside of Windows option will not retain history because obviously once you've copied it out of Rhino, it's left Rhino's memory and is no longer capable of holding history. So, transform menu, copy, using grid snap. Grid snap's how I moved it out of the way, so using grid snap to move it back or copy it back will work fine. I'm going to move my lines above and make sure the ones below follow. They did. Undo. I just do that to make sure that I have history attached. Now I'm going to pipe. My wires are 1.2 millimeters thick, but because I've stacked them side by side, I need to overlap them more than that. I can't just do 1.2. I'm going to make mine 1.3 so I get an overlap on both sides. Okay? So, go to record history, pipe, and starting diameter 1.3. Make sure it says diameter here. If it didn't say diameter, you'd click on diameter in the options. So 1.3, enter again to keep the same diameter at the other end, and then enter one more time if you don't have any other diameters you want to add, which we don't. Okay? Going to do the same thing with this wire. Make sure history is on. Pipe 1.3, and there we go. And the same thing is true for this pipe, which I will put in a contrasting color so it's easy for us to see. Pipe, and that is done. Okay, so there are my three wires. I'm going to record history, polar array them around this reference point that I have in the middle of my pattern. array them 4 times, 360, enter to accept. And there is my pattern, okay, ready for me to weave. Before I go any further, I am going to copy out a flat version of these wires and the original curves. So I'll do that with a Control C, taking that out of Rhino, Control V, bringing it back into Rhino. I will change the layer, which on our keyboard shortcuts is Control D, like dog, and I'll put them on a storage layer somewhere, in case I want to come back and work with them in their original state. Time to go into perspective viewport. I need these to be a good number of a good point curve construction for editing, for adapting. So I'm going to check. This should be 25, I believe. Yeah, it's 25.4. So that's fine. I want this one to match it. It's not going to, because I offset this curve to create it initially in my drawing, because my drawing are all evenly stacked like that. Offset always gives you a very heavy curve. So I'll see what my rebuilding on that is, F5, and right now it has 34. So I'll take it down to 25 and 4. That's good. This is going to just have 2 points. I know that. It's a straight line, 2, 1. I'm going to give that more. I'll say 7. 7, 4 should work for that. Okay. And these changes will have taken place across all of this geometry. Now I'm going to start to weave my pipes. I know that they come above here. Okay, so where they come above, I'm going to elevate it. So turn on my control points. Grab a few points here. I'm going to grab it on both wires. Bring up my gumball. Double click on the arrow. Since the blue arrow, the one pointing straight up, since I know my pipes are 1.3 and I want to move it half the pipe thickness, I'll type in 0.65. That's pretty good. Now I know that I want it to taper off somewhat gradually. Somewhere here in the middle, grab a few more points, double click on the arrow. I'm going to type in 0.3. And that'll give me the start of a ramp that I can work with. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Grab a few, move those 0.3. It looks pretty wobbly right now, but it gives me a point of reference to start smoothing these out. I will do one curve at a time, so I am going to hit F11 to take the points off and F10 to bring them back on just this curve. Turn on gumball. When you do control point edit in class, you want to continually rotate your view so that you get a sense of what the elevations are doing in 3D space. You'll notice I'm not really even checking on my curve, on my pipe. If my curve looks good, my pipe will look good. So I'm not going to worry about the pipe too much right now. And then coming over here, same thing. I'll go ahead and grab all 3 of these, move them up 0.3, and then make the transition. can see there in the background my pipe updating as I go. Once again, continually rotating my drawing, my model, to get a sense of, by the way, this is just a surface I put down in the background so that when my drawing was visible, my original background bitmap, I didn't have to look at all the text. As you'll recall, on that handout there's quite a bit of writing at the top, and I didn't want to have to keep trying to suffer through looking at it. Okay, that looks reasonably good to me. Take a look at the pipe. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, I will turn off its points, turn on these points, F11, then F10. I'll grab these points in between here and here, bring them up to 0.3, and then continue to smoothen the transition further. And I'll try and refine one segment of the curve at a time. So I'll do a few points, get them looking pretty good. I'm not going to go crazy with it. And then I'll move down to another section of the curve. It's really important in my design that these end flat because they're going to join into the next segment as it wraps around. So I got to have a flat area at the bottom. All of our designs, each one of our designs in this project, is going to have its own demands. In my design's case, I do need to keep that flat at the intersections. Coming up here, I'll move these 2 points up to 0.3 and then continue to smooth. Again, I need that flat area at the end, so I'm going to have to back off a little bit on how fast this climbs on the inner wire. Take a look at my pipe. That's pretty nice. Overlapping at about halfway. Good elevation. Okay. I'm going to check these curves a little bit with analysis tool. Notice that I didn't do that until I already had a curve that I liked. I don't want to overwork it. I don't have the time. And neither do you. I bring it close by hand and eye, and then make subtle adjustments to smoothen it out some. I'm not going to try and get it perfectly smooth. Trying to get a three-dimensional curve perfectly smooth is a waste of time. But I can improve what I had. And that's worth doing. Yes, that's fine. Take this one off the curvature graph. Okay, turn off curvature graph. There we go. And okay, and turn on the curvature graph for the outer one. Outer one looks okay, so I'm not going to bother with it. Okay, so there are my two curves. Obviously I still have to do this layer, which is sitting flat down inside. I'm going to turn on its points. I'm going to grab the end 3 that cut all the way across these wires, gumball, move them up 0.65. Okay, now that's a problem. Okay, that is a problem. I need to know where history is broken. Okay, the wire's listening, the pipes are not. So turn off gumball for a minute. Make sure I record history. And then make sure I record history for the polar array. Okay. Again. That's right. There we go. I'll pick a point about halfway down, do it 0.3, see what I think. I think this can be moved down a little bit. And this should be moved up a little bit. Okay, that's nice. Alright. So what I'm going to do now, by the way, to turn control points off, often you'll hear on the tutorials we go click, click. I hit escape twice. If you hit escape twice, it turns the points off. I want to put a ball at the end of these. So, solid sphere. Center radius, at the end, diameter 1.3. Same thing at this end. Bring this back and look at it. Okay, you can see that it is not actually, that doesn't look bad. I'll put it in the red pipe and we can see. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. I have to make sure I'm happy with these before I do what I'm going to do next, because this divorces it from those curves, from the parent curve. But I'm confident. So I will go ahead now and turn off gumball. Explode. Control click to remove that center surface, leaving the two end caps selected, and then delete. That's a good trick to use, guys. When you have an object that's like that and you just want to keep one piece, explode it, then take out the one piece that you want to keep using control click, and the rest will remain selected, so you can just hit delete. That way I don't have to go and go click, click, and delete. The command of explode left them selected for me. I'm going to go to wireframe. I need to use this surface to cut off the inside of that sphere. And the sphere. Okay, doesn't want to help me down here. That doesn't surprise me. Surfaces do not cut as well as curves. I'm going to borrow that curve with duplicate edge. These commands, by the way, guys, you're not going to see them in yours, I'm sorry. They're actually curve from objects. It's the pop out. In my workspace, I just put them here. Okay? That's where I set them. But, and as can you. Because I use them all the time. Okay, so I can just stuff them up there. But I'm going to duplicate an edge right here, And then while that's still selected, use trim, and you'll see that worked. I'm going to join this and this, and if the fit is good, it'll flash and go dark as a solid. And then transform array polar, which I can also have gotten right here. Okay. I'm not going to attach history because I can't edit this anymore anyway, so no point in putting history on it. I'll just take it as it is. Okay. And that gives me the main elements of my centerpiece, which I'm quite happy with. The next thing I need to do is I need to pipe this element. Okay, I'm going to put these all in the same layer. If I want to use these as my final piece, I'll actually Boolean them, union them, and then take them from there. I'm not sure I'm done with those, but I'm done for now. That's the difference between maquette and finished surfacing. The maquette is done. The sketch is done. It didn't take me long to do this. It proved some things. I have a couple of questions still about how much I like what's going on. But overall, I'm happy, and that informs me enough to move on. So I'm going to put these all on one layer. And then I'll lock that layer so I don't select it accidentally. I can still get at the curves, but I will not get at the object. Actually, I should lock the white layer while I'm here so I don't click those accidentally either. Okay, going to pipe. Remember, this has history attached to it the same as these center curves did. If I move this curve, that one moves along. It's important. I'm going to go ahead and pipe this wire. I know that's a 1.8 millimeter pipe, so pipe, type in 1.8, enter again to accept it for the other end, and enter again to accept that there are no more sections, or that's it. You press enter for none. So either I'd pick a point for my next diameter, which I don't want, or hit enter for none. There's my pipe. Okay. Now I can see something about this pipe right away that causes me a concern. Okay. I can see that it is too thick. I am not going to worry about that right now because I do need the history attached. If I play with this is the child. If I play around with that at all, it'll break history. So I just need the history for now, so I'll leave it as it is while I manipulate wires. Okay. I need to have a copy of this over here, so I'll record history in mirror around the center point. And I need a copy of it here, even more importantly. So I'm going to record history again, and I'm going to do a rotate command with copy equals yes, so that there's a copy. Around this point, 180 degrees. If that worked, if I move this, those should update. If I move this, okay, see, that didn't update. That means somewhere I didn't get my history attached. Very important. Got to keep history. Make sure that this is working. Yes, it is. Record history, pipe, mirror, record history, record history, rotate with the copy option equaling yes, 180. Now if I move this, everybody else moves. That's what I need. I'm going to change the color of this one just so it's easy to see how they weave. Turn on my points. Not sure what the math on this is, but I want it symmetrical. I may have already rebuilt it. It's important that it has a symmetrical count. 25. I like 25 points, you may have noticed. I use it quite a bit. Okay, this needs, I can look right, I'm going to have to look a ways down the line because I've got stuff in the way. But here is what I'm looking at. This needs to come up and over the top, and it needs to do it right about in the middle. So I'm going to grab this, okay? And I'm going to move it as if it were 1.2 millimeters. I'm going to move it the same, or 1.3. I'm going to move it the same elevations that I did the other wires. Gumball. 0.65. Okay? It's going to be a little chubby and overlapping a little too much, but that's okay. I'm not worried about that. I do want it to bite, to drop clear here at this edge. So I am going to grab, remember I have an odd number of points so I can do this symmetrically. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to type in minus 0.3. Okay, that was too far this way. I need it right at the edge there. So minus 0.3. Yeah, I like that better. I'm going to move the next one in also. Okay. So that worked. Now what I need is I need one more here because obviously this didn't come down far enough at this end. And another one still. There. That's good. Now I'm going to make this smooth. Okay. I have these at 0.65 up. This needs to drop really fast to go underneath this wire. And there's really not much I can do about that. I need to know that's probably right here. Nope. Yeah, it's that point. Okay, so I need it to be here at this elevation going under. So from here to here, I'm going to go ahead and move this down to minus 0.3. And then I'm going to transition a nice smooth climb on this side. And then these I'll move up to 0.3, not minus 0.3, positive 0.3. Take a look at how that affected things. Not bad. And do a nice smooth transition here. I want a nice smooth ramp dropping down. Okay. Nice. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I believe that this is the important point. Actually, this side doesn't weave as hard, as tight, so I don't have to be as cautious. So this side, I'm just going to be more about making it nice and smooth. I'll make this 0.4. Through here. that's pretty nice. Pretty nice. Now I want to make the ends of this tuck up in a nice way. And I can do this symmetrically, so. Like that. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think that looks pretty good. I can check it with my curvature graph. Not bad. Yeah, nice. Okay, so I've got that. All right. My problem is these wires, these pipes are too thick. That's my problem. They are simply too heavy. But they've been useful. They've allowed me to see my curve the way that it is from up here. I'm going to make a copy without history of this curve. I'm going to turn its points back on. It's the same as this one, same as that one. I'm going to grab all of those points and I'm going to project them to the C-plane, okay? Which on our shortcuts is a C-enter. Yes. Delete all objects. That makes that completely flat again. I will repeat what I just did. Select all the curve points. C-enter is shortcut for project to C-plane. And we want it to delete the input objects. Delete those points so that the whole object goes flat. Turn off my points. Okay. I am now going to pipe this again. Turn off Gumball. Turn that off so I have room to see what I'm doing here. Pipe. 1.8. Enter, enter, enter. I want to non-uniform scale this. I have a couple of choices how I can do that. I can do it visually or I can do it mathematically. I'll show you both. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to flow along curve. Transform, flow along curve. Copy, yes. I need history. Record history. Flow along curve. This end of the base curve, this end of the base curve. And you can see now that I have created a flowed version of this. I'll record history, mirror this from side to side, and record history, and rotate it around this point. Copy option, yes, 180 degrees. I'm going to change this into a different color so I can see it well. Looks the same as what I had before, only there's a whole lot more ISO curves. Those points, those curves on the surface, you can see the mesh is a lot tighter. That's because whenever you flow it, you make the math a lot more complex. One of the side effects. Okay, I'm going to grab this, transform, non-uniform scale, grid snap off, end snap on. I don't want to scale it this way, so I hit and type in 1, enter. That means 100% means don't change anything. I don't want to change it this direction, 1, enter. I want to change it this direction. Do you see what just happened? I have my nice weaving, and this now is a thickness that is more appropriate for the rest of my piece. That's how I would do it by eye. If I want to do it mathematically, it's the same thing. Non-uniform scale, end snap, 1 enter because I don't want to go that way, 1 enter because I don't want to change that way. This way I'm going to type in. Rhino has a wonderful feature. You can actually, to get a number, I hope it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work, I'll have to get a calculator out. But usually Rhino lets you run a calculator in the context of your command. I want this to go from 1.8 to 1.2. I mean 1.3. Those other pipes are 1.3. So I can type in 1.3 / 1.8. 1.3 divided by 1.8, and Rhino will do the math for me. And this is now exactly 1.2, which means this is now exactly the thickness of my other pipes. Okay. Either solution is a good one. Either one works. Okay. If I don't like what I have here, okay, since it's flowed along this curve, which is flowed along this curve, say for example I don't like the way that the end of this is left hanging out in here. Okay, I would like to have a smoother transition on the back of my piece. I can turn on the points. I can grab, say, these three, and I can move them. And that has been updated to be pulled further forward. Okay. Unfortunately, when it pulled it forward, it didn't do what I expected it to do. That is one of the problems. Is that I am it's moving it, but it's not doing a lot because I have so many steps of history in between. That's too bad. Yeah, you can't always get the... Oh, actually, yeah, that is the one. Alright, so if I don't like that, I would have to go back and redo my maquette and take some additional steps. Or I can move it much further and see if it gave me. But not really. No, it's not. It's not going to, because what happens is this curve becomes, that's why, because this curve becomes so much longer than this curve. That's the reason. Okay, so I can't address it this way. Okay. So as a maquette, I would know that in my finished piece I don't care for this. I would change some things in my finished design. For now, I could just come in here and fill at the edge. It's a 1.2 maximum, so 0.5 fillet. Too much. 0.4. It's actually probably going to still be too much. No, that worked. And I can notice how it updated the other ones automatically. .3 on this one. And that gives me a little bit of a softness at the corners of my piece, which makes those abutments less noticeable. Okay? And that's it, guys. That would be enough for me, for you to finish your homework. The only thing that would remain for you to do would be to now arrange it. Now in my design's case, this is actually a mirror from side to side. Okay. Somehow I got that wrong. I am going to group these. It's important to remember what you've grouped and what you've not grouped, because You might be clicking on this and thinking you've booleaned it, and you haven't. These are only combined for purposes of selection. Okay, so once again, mirror, point, there, and that follows my design. And then this whole assembly I will group again and rotate, copy option, 180 degrees. And then I need to grab, I'll ungroup that. I need to grab these two elements and mirror them over. Okay, so there is my layout. I need to mirror it. I'll have to do the same thing over here. Okay, that's a nice flat maquette of my pattern. The last thing I would need to do before I flow these is cut these. So I would actually grab those two surfaces, surface, planar surface. Planar surfaces project perpendicular from the current C-plane and bisect any geometry that's selected, like that. I would make sure that this surface points towards what I'm going to keep, because I'm going to use a Boolean difference to cut. So analyze, direction, perfect, solid difference. Fine. Actually, before I do that, I'm actually going to grab this and mirror it to the other side, because it will be in the right position. There we go. And then repeat the command. There. There is my pattern laid out flat. Okay. The last thing I would do with this is I would select all of these, and group them. I'll put them all in the same layer. I will bring up my front view, and I will do my band like I showed you in class. Surface extrude. Extrusions go perpendicular from the active C-plane. Since I want it to go this way, I'll activate my front C-plane, my vertical. Extrude straight. Make sure end snap is on. Make sure solid yes is on. And I'll just grab anything that represents the end thickness of my band. I'm going to cut this with a cutting plane. So cutting planes run perpendicular to the current C-plane. So if I ran a cutting plane right now, it would jump out into the piece like this. I don't want it. I want it to go through it from the top. So I wanted to cut from the top. So go to top C-plane. Pre-select my band, cutting plane. Grab the inside edge of my rim. I can go outside, inside, doesn't matter. All that matters is it's straight. Hold the shift key. Make sure that this is pointing towards what I want to keep, which is this outer rim. Perfect. Okay. Mirror this. I'm not really bothering with history because these are mostly simple maquette forms that I could regenerate easily if I wanted to. Alright, the last thing I'm going to do is flow along curve in this tutorial. So pre-select my geometry. I need to make sure my seam's in the right place. Remember we talked about the seam on a circle? The end of this flow curve is here, so the end of this flow curve needs to be at the bottom. Not sure I changed that. Curve, edit tools, adjust closed curve seam. Yeah, it's where I want it. Good. Record history. Transform, flow along curve. I have that layer locked. And here. there's my pattern. Now, as we talked about in class, it's sitting way above the top of the rim. That's because I built it above the curve, so it's going to flow above the curve. I can move it down, though, easily. If I want to move it down precisely even with the top, go into my vertical C-plane, and it should be exactly 0.65 above the top. So if I go M-enter, click anywhere, type in 0.65, pull straight down. That should put that even with the top of my band pretty much, but I would like it to go deeper in, of course. So I'm going to move it by eye. Move it down a little bit. Take a look. See how I like it on the inside. I'd like it to move down a little more. That's a little too much. Undo. M-enter. Remember, it always remembers the last distance on move. So I moved 0.6 last time. It was too much. I'll do 0.3 this time. Constrain it to 0.3. Hold Shift key to pull straight down. And see if I like that. A little bit deeper still. So I know I have already moved it 0.3 further, 0.6. I didn't like that. It was too deep. So I'll move this 0.15 more. Okay. I like it. Okay. So I need to keep a copy of this for my reference as I finish working on the model. Like I said, for my model, this is only a maquette. I'm going to want to do more development. So I'm going to grab these two. I'm going to Control-C, copy them outside of Rhino. Then I'm going to undo, 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 undo. This is back to where I know I want my maquette to be for working on it further. But I'm going to paste back in, because now I know how far down I wanted it to move and what it's going to look like. And these I would put on a storage layer, so I can use them later. Okay? For now, I will hide this. Turn off the dark blue layer. Turn off everything that's not going to make viewing this easy. Select all here, and I'll emap it so you can see what my design would look like in metal. Okay, so far so good. What I can tell is that based on the way my pattern stretched going around the ring, it's a little bit long this way. Also, that's probably a little heavy as far as thickness of a band for me to wear. So it's going to work out for me if I just non-uniform scale the finished thing a little bit. But I don't want to do that because that's going to change all of my wires thicknesses. These will become thinner while these stay thicker, and I don't think I want that. So I may have to adjust the overall thickness of my piece before I go any further. But for now, and for the purposes of our tutorial, this is done. Thanks for watching.